this. So I can access my SQL Server Management Studio here. This is the first window that goes up on your screen using the system. Okay, hold on, let me just check this. Please, can you all see my screen? Okay.
Yes, Carlos, I can see your screen.
Okay. Okay. So this allows you to connect this interface. This interface is what allows you to type your queries or enter your queries. And this connects to the server that holds the data itself. So what happens is you need to create that connection. Over here, I type localhost because everything is on my local machine here. If in a live production environment, the database itself will be sitting on a server. So you'd have to enter the IP address of the server, maybe 192.168.90.76, something. Anyway, yeah. But for the purposes of this, we'd use localhost because everything is on the same machine. And because it's on the same machine, I'm using the Windows authentication. In other instances, you would have to use the SQL Server authentication. So you just click on connect, and if it's successful, you'd see something appearing on the left side. On the left side, that's the Object Explorer pane. So you expand the localhost connection, you find databases to be the first item. You can expand that to have access to all the databases on the system. There are two sets. You could have the system databases and the user-created databases. The system databases are in the system databases folder here. Then the user-created ones over here only have two, the address book and the byte stores on this system. Yeah. The interface is quite simple if you get used to it. The new query allows you to be able to enter your query. So this is the window where we'll be writing the queries. When we write our first query, the result will be displayed at the bottom over here. So we'll start by trying out a few things. We'll create a first query. We want to create a database called company. So we type the query create database company. Every SQL statement ends with a semicolon. That shows that you've terminated your statement. So you type your query, a simple one like this, it just says create database company. So when you see this, the color has turned to blue. That shows that it's an SQL keyword. So the SQL sees this and understands this as a keyword. So highlight and then you execute. It shows you that the commands was successfully completed. When you get this, that means your command has gone through. All the results of your queries would be shown in this pane. How do we ensure that the database has really created? Let's go here to refresh the list of databases, expand databases, and we find company right here. So a database has been created, company, but it's blank. There's no tables. There are no tables in it. So we need to create a table. So let's try another one. Let's create a table called you need to specify the various attributes, their data type, and the other constraints that would have to go in there. So what happens is we need to do this. So let's say the department would have an ID. It would be an integer, and it would be the primary key. That is the first line. Then we come down to say the department would have a name. The data type would be vector. Let's say the name of the department would be let's say 50 characters. It should be unique, so we say it's unique. So you realize that it's most of the things that we're doing when we're modeling the data, that's what we are translating over here. Let's add a third attribute called location. Location should also be varchar. Anytime you open a bracket, you need to close it. If you don't do that, you are surely going to get an error. And some of those errors can be really frustrating. Yeah. So remember, we opened a bracket here, we need to close it like that. Then we terminate our statement. So select that and click on execute. It also shows that command has been completed successfully. How do we ensure that it's really there? Let's go and refresh. Let's go to databases, expand company, expand tables. Oops. Expand company. Okay, no. Let's do this. Oh, okay. I know where the mistake is coming from. So in this query, something we need to ensure a list of databases that are available on our system. Always make sure that the right database is activated. Initially, it was in master. So this department that we created went into the master database. So always make sure that you have selected the right database before you execute. So let's go back, refresh. Databases, expand company, expand tables. Then we have dbo.department showing here. So this is how we create a department. Let me try another example. So let's say job role. Yeah, let's create a job role. So create, okay, let me create employee instead. Create table employee. And it would be integer. It's a primary key. The employee would have a first name. Now, the way I'm breaking it down, you could put all on the same line, but you always want to make sure your code is readable. So it's easier for people to understand when you break down your code. So I always prefer doing it this way. Last name, but also 20. Let me add maybe 2 more. Email. Let's say 50. Yeah. Then I close this, I terminate. So this is the employee table. Select this and execute. Commands completed successfully. Let's go and check if it's really in the expand databases, expand company, expand tables. We have employee there. So we've created 2 tables in the company database. After creating the table, there's no data in it. How do we check, how do we create the data? We use what we call the insert. So we are going to try to insert some data into our database. Let's try with the department first. Okay, no, let me just do employee. So we are going to insert into employee. Employee, we say, okay, so the first one is ID, comma, first name, last name, and then email. Then you indicate the values that would be inserted into the table. ID is 001 because we say it's an integer. First name is, let's say, Kwame. Now, there's something I'll do here. You'd realize that I'll put all the characters, the string characters, in single quotes. All string characters and date values are put in quotes. So let's say we have Kwame Cosina. The email is kwame@late, let's say, @late.com or .co.uk.
Hi, Carlos. It's Barbara here. Can I ask a quick question, please?
Yeah, go ahead. You can ask what
So,
somebody.
you know where you've got the values and you've got the open bracket 001?
Where did I get it?
Yeah, the 001 from.
It's just an assumption. So we are assuming that in this case, Kwame is an employee, his employee ID is 001. So we are doing
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thanks.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So let's select this and execute. It says one row we call the select statement. So we just say select star. Star represents all the attributes from employee. Then we execute. Then that's the data for the results for Kwame. He has an ID one. First name is Kwame, last name is Cosina, email is kwame@slate.co.uk. So this is what happens. Let's assume that we want to, okay, let's just add another person to our database. This person will be 2. This is, let's say, Barbara. She's 1. Yes. So this is @select.co.uk. This another employee. We just select this and execute. We have another row affected. When we go and verify, we have 2 people here. Let's just say that we want to change the email address of Babs at late.co.uk because she doesn't like this name. We need to perform an update. Inserting add new records into your database. Updating makes changes to the existing records. So let's try that. We say update. We specify the table that we want to update. We say employee. Update employee. Then we set the email value. We set it to, let's say, Barbara @late.co.uk. Then we now come and specify the condition or which row we are updating or whose record we are updating. This is for Barbara. Her employee ID is 2. So we say where ID equals 002. Let's try executing this and see what happens. This is 1 row affected. So let's go and verify if the result was really changed. Let me drag this down a little. We see that it has changed from Babs to Barbara @late.co.uk. What did you do? We just changed the value of the email from Babs to Barbara by using the update command. The update command. Yeah. Okay, let me just do one more thing on delete before I show you more of the select statement. So
sorry,
deleting,
Carlos, it's me again.
yeah,
Apologies.
go ahead.
You know when you when it comes up with a row affected, is that a normal thing then? Will you always say 1 row affected, 2 row affected?
Is that a what?
A normal occurrence.
Yeah, that's to give you an indication. Yeah, that's to give you an indication that whatever command that you wanted to execute, executed successfully.
Right. And then how do you go into change to check it? How did you do
That's
that?
where we use the select. We use the
Oh, to
select. So the
execute
select
it.
retrieves
Okay.
the information from the database here.
Right. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I want to introduce an error in a situation where there would be an error. So let's say, okay, so delete from EMPS, where ID equals 1. Delete employee, the record of employee number 1 from our database. But you've noticed that this is going to give us an error. Already it has underlined EMPS because there's no table or there's no entity called EMPS. It's supposed to be employee. So let's execute this and you get an error. It tells you invalid object name EMPS. So anytime you run a query that is not correct, it would prompt you that there is a problem with the record that you are trying to work on. So employee, okay, let's try this. You realize that when I change the employee, the red line went off. So let's execute this. It says 1 row affected. That means it has still worked on 1 row. How do we verify that? Let's select our employee and retrieve the data. We only have Barbara's record, the William's record or Kwame's record is off. So what have we done? We've performed a delete operation. Okay. Now this selects, so 3 things that we have looked at. We've created a database using a simple command, create database company. We've created a table. When you're creating the table, you need to specify the column, the data type, and any other constraints that are available. Then we performed an insert, we performed an update operation, then we performed a delete function. All of these that we've looked at, most of the time is the data architects or the database designer that will be working on them, that will be performing these queries. If anything, the select statement that retrieves information from the database, that's what you find that's most regularly used. So let's try a few of the select statements. Let me use a database that has a lot of data. So let's say I would use bike stores. Bike stores is a database that contains a database of a bike shop with the list of customers and the staff and the products that they sell. So let me try the first one. I want to display, so these are the tables in bike stores. We have production.brands, production.categories, production.products, stocks, and all of that. You'd realize that this one has some prefix to the name of the tables. The tables are brands, categories, products, stocks. The prefix here signifies a schema. So the schema here is being used as a category, so or a section. So it groups, it takes a group of entities and calls them sales, another group of entities and calls them production. So we want to display the list of maybe all the customers that are in the company. So we say select star from sales.customers. Always remember to terminate. Let's take this and execute. So this now shows us data of all the customers that patronize the shop or something. Yeah. It shows their customer ID, first name, last name, phone, email, street, city, state, and zip code. This star here represents all the attributes in the table. Let me change this. Assuming I don't want to display all the attributes, maybe I'm interested in only the customer ID and their names and probably the states that they come from. So I'll say select first name, last underscore name, and then the state. So I select and execute. It shows me the list of the customers and the states that they are coming from. Okay, I only have a couple of minutes. I want to execute one more query, which is a bit complex and would that's supposed to demonstrate why we had to create relationships. So in this, we are only retrieving data from just one table. In the last one that I'm going to do, I'm going to connect or retrieve data from 3 separate tables and display the data. What are we going to do? We have products. From here, you see products. Products have brands or belong to brands, and they belong to some category. So when you look at the schema, maybe I should just use the model. You could have the database diagram embedded in the DBMS. So when we come here, we expand database diagrams. Let's go here, create a new database diagram. It gives you all the tables that are existing. Let's select all, click on add. Then it creates some sample or some kind of a database diagram for us. How do I get all to show it? Data already of the diagram from here and look at all the other entities. So let's go back to our query. We want to create a query that will display the list of products with their brands and categories. This I've done here with the green is called a comment. When the system sees anything starting with the dash dash, it ignores that line. It doesn't use it. It's for the reader or the programmer to understand the query that you are writing. So I say select product ID, product name, brand name, what else? Category name. Which table do we get that from? We say from production.products. That would be our first table. Production.products. But in production.products, we're only going to get product ID and product name. We are not going to get brand name and category name. So what happens is we need to connect products to categories and brands. We use something we call the join or left join. So you say left join products to production dot, let's say brands first, then another left join production dot. I know this is very technical, so it's just a demonstration of how SQL works, how we code in SQL. Yeah. Categories. What performs the matching? So we need to now look for what connects the products to the brands. We have the brand ID. So we say on brand ID equals brand ID. Let me give an alias. I'll call this P. I'll call this B, and I'll call this C. So I can say P.brand ID equals B.brand ID. I'll do the same thing here on P.category ID equals your system tries to give you hints on what to use. Okay, yeah. So let's try this first. I hope it works. Yeah. So this is product ID with their product names, the brand name, and the category names showing here. Let's assume that you want to display, let me add list price. You want to display the list price, the prices of the items. So go back to execute. Then we have the list price added to it. Maybe you want to display a particular category of list prices, those that have are above maybe 10,000 or 5,000. So where list price is greater than 5,000. So 5,000. We select this and execute. Now you realize that all these data that we are showing here, we're seeing here, doesn't fall below the 5,000. Here we have only 13 rows. You could see it at the bottom right corner, 13 rows. Initially, we had how many rows of data? 321. So we have 321 products, but only 13 of them are having a list price of more than 5,000. So this is just how SQL works. It's more of English, but it has a few technicalities and all of that. This is just a demo of how SQL works. I can't go through the whole of SQL because it's quite practical. And just doing a session like this, I would need you to be able to practice it alongside. So I think at this point, I'll just take a few questions on this session that would end it. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead.
Carlos, it's me again. Sorry, since nobody's asking. What happens if you don't key in the from sales customer? Say if you don't specify the location, will it come up with an error sign?
You mean with
like
this?
Yeah,
you're going to get an error. Let's just do it.
Okay.
Because you are saying that you are retrieving first name, last name, state, but you don't tell the DBMS where you are going to get it from. So the system doesn't know what you want. So it tells you this. It says invalid column name, first name, last name, state, because it doesn't know where to retrieve this data that you are requesting. Yeah. So in almost all select statements, now, let me make this point. Select is mainly used to retrieve data from the database. So a lot of reports that are generated from the database, we use this select statement. Select has a lot of variants. Select would allow you to perform some arithmetic operations. It will allow you to sort your data. It will allow you to group your data. It has a lot of variants that we can't cover even in just one day. Yeah. So, okay, someone says, how do I select just one row from a table? Is that possible? Column. Okay, one column. Yeah. So, over here, let's assume we want only the first name. We could just say, select first name from customers. Then we have only the first names. So, when we put star, star will give you everybody, or the list of all the customers. Yeah. Is SQL software free to download and install? Yes. The developer edition of Microsoft SQL Server is free. The enterprise and I think the professional, you have to pay for it. But the developer edition is free, so you can always go to Microsoft website and download. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, then we'll end our session here. This is actually going to be my last session on data modeling. I'm working on the content for data. Maybe I'm still discussing with William. Okay, let me answer this. What good book would you recommend for SQL? Maybe you could go to this W3 schools. They have quite some material on
Queries.
yeah, let me W3 schools has some material on that. You could get some information from the W3 schools SQL. Yeah, so it will give you all the syntax, the various syntax that you can use, you can study with examples from them.
So, Carlos.
Okay, so this would be
Hello,
yeah,
Carlos.
sorry.
So this
Yeah,
will require more practice because since we covered it.
Actually practical. It's very practical. So just doing a demonstration of it would not be enough. If you are not coding alongside, it's more like you are just observing me doing something. And yeah, so it's very practical.
So it's also not a one-time class. You have to be doing it all the time.
Yes.
Are there,
yes.
Okay, what if someone gets the SQL, downloads it? Is there data that they could upload? Is there any places they could find data, or?
There are some sample data sets online that you could find. I think Microsoft has one popular one. We call it the AdventureWorks data set that you could work with here. But some of those data, if you understand the concept of the database, then it would be easy to operate those data sets. Yeah. If you don't understand it, you could download the data, but you might not really know how to query the data or get information out of the data. Yeah.
Okay, I know a question that most BAs would ask is one, pulling out data from SQL to create reports and visualizing the data. So if you could think along those lines, because when you pull the data out, you have to analyze the data, refine it, then you can produce a report. If that could be the next roadmap, let's have a chat about it. Or we could put a poll in the group and see what people come up with.
Okay, that would be fine. So what happens is when you have your data in your SQL, you could connect it to Excel, Microsoft Excel. Then you can now create your visualizations, your graphs and your charts and all of that. You could export it from Excel to Power BI to Tableau and then create more interactive visualization of your data. So the data doesn't become static. Once it connects to Excel, it always updates and you get the updated version of the data to create your visualization. So we'll look at it. Maybe the members of the group will tell me if they want this or something else. Yeah, we could discuss it in the group.
Okay.
But for continuing this SQL part, if I want to continue like this, it might become boring because you'll just be looking at me typing the codes and the queries and you'll just be observing. But to be able to understand this properly, you need to be practicing alongside. So most of the SQL sessions that I've had people I actually just guide the people. I let the trainees do the coding themselves and I guide them on how to code it. When there's any mistake, I correct it or we do it together, that kind of thing. Because this is very practical. The more you practice, the more you become very good at it. So
this requires more labs, eh?
Yes. It needs more lab sessions.
Then we have to sign on to your sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So on Monday, agile testing and automation continues. On Tuesday, the business agility, focusing on the safe framework will continue. I'll be making a couple of appearances on the business agility sessions also. So I'll not be missing in action altogether. Thank you very much for your attendance and for your support, the questions and all of that throughout the session. I'm very grateful. You've helped me to learn a lot, and I believe that you've also learned something from this data modeling sessions. Enjoy your day and enjoy your weekend. See you later. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Carlos.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.